Good morning. My name is Barbara Bynum, and I'm one of the facilitators for the forum. And I'd like to start this morning with a big thank you to Carlton Mason and all of CASA. Let's give them a round of applause. They really came through for Forum in a pinch. We had outgrown the deli at the end of last year, and by mutual agreement between the Forum and the deli agreed that it was time for us to find a new home. And you may or may not know that CMU has been working on a home for us, but it wasn't going to be ready. And so CASA really stepped up for the last 8 months to provide us this great location. But their plans to turn this into a teen center have kicked off, and as you can see, there's a smoothie bar, there's a couch, there's plans for more couches and foosball tables and all sorts of great things for the teens in our community, which was always what this space was envisioned to be. A bungee jump. I don't think that's in their plans, but you can tell Carlton. So it is time for us to move on. And the facility at CMU was almost ready, and then it ran into a few snags. So we're going to keep you all on your toes for the next couple weeks. So this is our last day here. And then for the next 2 Wednesdays, we are going to be guests of the county at the new county event center. So great parking, easy to find. I think everyone knows where the event center is. We'll make sure the information is in the emails. We'll be there for 2 weeks. And then in 3 weeks' time, we have a tour of the airport. So we'll be at the airport. And then after that, we'll let you know. Stay tuned. But again, thanks to CASA for providing this home for us for the last 8 months. I think everyone agreed that while change can be difficult after being at the deli for so long, that this has been a wonderful home for us, and so we really appreciate their time. Okay, so this morning we have a great program. We have the City of Montrose Police Department Chief Blaine here, along with some other guests, to talk to us a little bit about public safety and some crime statistics for our community. So let's give Chief Hall a big round of applause.
So I know that this is a very informed group, and so I've been told that we need more time for questions. So I'm going to go through my presentation quickly. And if you could hold all those questions until the end, we will also invite our district attorney to come up and speak for a little bit. But I have about 30 minutes, and it's a challenge for me, as some of you know. So we'll get right into it. I think that most of us, including myself, know Montrose to be this. And we live in a great community, we really do. And you get up in the morning just like I did this morning, and I parked right out here and I met an individual and I said, good morning. And he said, it certainly is going to be, look at how beautiful it is. And he was right, and it is beautiful. But I really want to inform everyone here today that there's another side of Montrose that the Montrose Police Department is dealing with. And I'll show you some stats to start with. And I'm going to run through these real quick, but in 2010, the Montrose Police Department dealt with 23,000 incidents, actually 23,500. And last year, we were up to 31,000 incidents for the city of Montrose for our police department to handle. But it didn't stop there. Our felony crime has increased by 51%. In 2010, we had 480 reported felonies. In 2018, we're up to 724. Folks, that's over 2 felonies a day on average for 2018. Now, to be clear, some of those felonies, and those are our arrests, and the difference there is our clearance rate, some of those felonies are drug felonies. They're drug crimes. So we're pretty good. I don't know if you've read the paper lately at arresting drug crimes. But here's the thing. That number and that number also represent sex crimes, which we average about 69 per year, most of them against children. Robberies, which we've seen 8 this year, including our latest, the Ulta convenience store robber. Burglaries, people just brazenly walking into residents on the northern part of our town and stealing wallets and purses off of countertops. All of those things. And so if you take this number and you reduce it by about 25–30%, which is the drug felonies that we're arresting, we didn't have that many, or much less, then. That means we're not making arrests on the sex assaults, on the burglaries, on those other crimes that we should be. And these are our response times. International Association of Chiefs of Police says about 4 to 7 minutes for a priority 1 call. A priority 1 call is a life safety call. You need a police officer there now. In progress burglary, in progress sex assault, in progress fight. Today, we're at 16 minutes and 57 seconds on average for a priority 1 response. And we're up to 37 minutes.
Is that the average or the median?
That's the average.
Average.
Yep. So we're up to 37 minutes and 50 seconds. For instance, here about a month ago, I had a call, or I was awoken in the middle of the night. I live in American Village, for a woman that was screaming. It was a disturbance. I called, just like any of you would, and I ended up getting a call back from the officer, and he said, "Hey, we'll be right there. We're just a little bit busy." It actually irritated me a little bit. He said, "I'm just clearing the hospital. We'll be right there." So I hung up the phone. I could tell he was stressed. I looked on my phone because I have an app to see what's going on. We were dealing with 4 simultaneous disturbances on a Monday night at midnight. The worst one being a young man who broke into a home and beat another man's head in. And that person was transported to St. Mary's. So this is what we have today. We have 6 patrol sergeants at full staff and 27 patrol officers. That includes, of that 27, 2 school resource officers and 1 crime-free officer, for a total of 33 officers responding to calls for service. Now, our sergeants, realistically, we like them to supervise. So we really don't like them responding to calls, but the reality is they do. That's the reality. In our detective division, we have 1 detective sergeant and 3 detectives. Here's the situation. With the increase in felony crime, our detectives were supposed to take all the felonies. Because when they do that, that frees up our patrol division to actually be more proactive. Or work the misdemeanor crimes and the other things that they need to do, traffic enforcement, things like that. With 3 detectives and a detective sergeant, with the 4 death investigations that they're working right now, an armed robbery, the other armed robberies, and on average 69 sex assaults per year, they're not working the cases that they need to be working. So those are going back to, I affectionately call them the blue suits, the patrol officers. So right now our patrol officers are sitting in the PD, making phone calls, doing follow-up, going and interviewing witnesses, which they should be doing anyway, but those are for misdemeanors, but they're doing it for felonies. And so we're having a very difficult time being proactive. And this is what we're dealing with. The parolee here about a month ago that had the short shotgun in his car. The bag of methamphetamine, 28 grams, on a traffic stop. That's heroin, which I should let you know that for the first time in our history, from July 2nd to August 2nd, we seized 69 grams of heroin in 1 month and 57 grams of methamphetamine. So the scales flipped. And I'll talk to you later about dosing for heroin versus meth. These are the 5 individuals locally from around our community who decided to come to the city of Montrose to have sex with a 13-year-old girl and a boy. They were met by the Montrose Police Department, Sheriff's Department, and the FBI, and they were prosecuted. Folks, sex trafficking is alive and well here in the city of Montrose. You don't chat up some 13-year-old girl online and then go to a hotel room, brazenly walk in, knowing what you're going to do, unless you've done it before. Period. Not to mention, don't know if you saw the article the other day, Phil Rosti tries to do some computer crimes because we have federal money to do that. At times, the city of Montrose has been ranked, and it ebbs and flows, third in the state of Colorado for the downloading of child pornography. The great thing is, we know where they are. We do. I've watched the computer that shows that stuff. We just have to have the time to be able to go after those individuals. This is the Alta convenience store armed robbery, who we are still looking for. That is a stolen firearm out of Mesa County. From about 2 weeks ago, when one of our officers stopped a stolen vehicle, both of the individuals had warrants for their arrest, drugs, and guns. I want you to remember Mesa County. And of course, you all know the traffic issues that we have. All for this. On a 10-hour shift, on a standard day, we have 4 officers working and a sergeant, to be fair. So 5 total. But these are the officers responding to calls for 31,000 incidents per year. Our funding. We have been criticized. The city has been criticized. You've known about this. You have a $56 million budget. Why aren't you funding public safety? Folks, this piece right here, that red pink, that's the general fund. That's 30% of the overall budget of the city of Montrose. $16 million. That's the funding source for both the police department and for public works, for streets. So these other pieces of the pie that you see, the enterprise fund, for instance, that's a pretty big piece. Why can't we fund public safety out of the enterprise fund? That's water, sewer, and trash. We can't. We can't because the rules say we can't. So for those of our community that say the city of Montrose isn't funding, these are the facts. Public safety. We get 43% of the general fund currently, or excuse me, in 2018, because our 2019 audit numbers aren't out yet. Public works, including streets, with the $40 million of deferred street maintenance, it's 31% of that money. 26%, the rest, go to fund courts, go to fund city clerk, go to fund all of those other departments in the city besides streets and public safety. And so here is the budget numbers for how the city of Montrose has funded the Montrose Police Department since 2011. For the sake of time, all of these other colors are patrol, drug task force, animal control, code enforcement administration, all added into these yellow bars. The city of Montrose, in the last 8 years, has funded public safety and increased the Montrose Police Department's budget by about $1.6 to $1.7 million, based on those 2 bars right there. In fact, in 2018, we had 43% of the general fund, and in 2019, the city continues to try to fund us, and we're now at 45%. All of that increase is in personnel. The city has given us 2 police officers per year with the authorization to take the funding for 2 more police officers out of the reserves authorized by City Council pretty much since the city manager got here. But the problem is that we cannot keep up with our increasing crime rate. And there are other things. Police officers are tasked to do more than ever before, including a serious issue in our community now that's mental health, that's commingled with substance abuse. So that's why we did this. We now have a master's level clinicianist working with our police officers from the Center of Mental Health. She rides with our police officers 24/7, and she responds to people who are in crisis, and we can fast track them to get them help. How much did this cost? Must be a lot. It didn't cost us anything because the Center of Mental Health got a grant. And now we're sharing this resource with Montrose County Sheriff's Department because mental health is a countywide concern. We go after grants to supplement these things. So, real quick, what are your thoughts? Because public safety sales taxes aren't a new thing. Mesa County passed one in 2018, and now they are hiring a plethora of deputies. And they're using a model called intelligence-led policing. And they're seeing about a 30% reduction in crime. Because honestly, they're going after the top 6% of offenders in their community, because it's irresponsible to add more police officers to your force without having a plan on how to use them. You can't just say, go out and do good. You have to have a plan. They had a plan, and we're adopting that model. The city of Grand Junction in April passed a public safety sales tax, and they're hiring more police officers as we speak. And Delta County is putting a 1% on the ballot in November to share 0.5 with the Delta County Sheriff's Office, 0.5 with the City of Delta Police Department and the other surrounding municipalities. What do you think is going to happen? I'm not fear-mongering here. Where did the gun come from? Mesa County Street Crimes Unit has already been here, looking for their offenders. That's the reality of it. Crime goes where there aren't resources, folks. So, this is the plan. We can talk more about it during question and answers. ILP, we are going to focus on drug dealers, drug houses, the top 6% of our offenders. And we're going to do some other things, school safety and stuff like that. We want to turn this into an arrest, a burglar into an arrest. So this is the ask. This is what we're trying to do. We need 6 officers for 6 shifts because we've got to get back to 10-hour shifts. Right now we're working 12s for staffing levels, and our officers are tired. 12s turn into 14, 15-hour days. That's the reality of it. It just is. And we're actually almost there. We need 3 more officers authorized to get there. Just 3. Because what we actually need to do is double our detective division. We need 3 more detectives so we can pull felony investigation away from here, back to here, make them more proactive. And then we've got to get more school resource officers, folks. We have to have full-time school resource coverage, a high school, both middle schools, and one for our elementary schools and our charter schools. It's so important. Crime analyst. That's who's going to tell us who our top 6% are. With some software and some interviews, that's a civilian position. The county has had tremendous success with the street crimes unit, and we have to get on board. That is the proactive point of the spear that can help that group working together. They all work together. And then a public safety attorney. Because after we hit a drug house, they come back. And if you've ever lived next to one, you know what I'm talking about. And they make your neighborhood miserable. I used to live next to one. And it made the neighborhood miserable. This person can file civil abatement orders so that we can hold landlords accountable to renting to individuals like this. And then, of course, our traffic issues. We've got people on cell phones, road rage, and then these individuals can investigate our traffic accidents, pulling that duty away from these individuals, making them more proactive. So you see what we're doing. Our ask is not necessarily to increase this, it's to increase everything around it to pull the duties away from these individuals so they can be more proactive. So when I get a call for trucks on Hillcrest And I say we will try to get there, and I make the individual very upset because they don't know what we're dealing with, and I feel bad. But we have to prioritize our response. And this is what we're dealing with. And then we have to rely on some civilian support, 2 more records techs, and then civilian report takers, because we shouldn't be paying a blue suit a good wage to sit in the police department and take found property and lost property reports. It's just a waste. Let's talk real quick about take-home patrol cars, because we've been criticized lately about that. I think this is an informed group, so I'm going to start real quick with the low-hanging fruit, which is this. If you drive a patrol car 24/7, you will replace it once every 2 to 3 years. The city of Montrose replaces the take-home patrol fleet once every 8 to 9 years on average. There's your cost savings right there. Not to mention, let's say we go to 6 to 6, so you have 6 patrol cars on your fleet, but you have an overlap, so you put another 6 on there. Cars break down, so let's just put 3 out there just to make sure there are enough cars. So what happens when the oncoming shift has their cars, and then we have some type of an incident, and all the cars are used up, and I have officers that need to respond, but can't, because the wife or the husband has the car. And when they finally get the car, they have to pull all their SWAT equipment into it, and then they have to respond. You think they're going to go the speed limit? No, they're going to break the law, because we have to have red and blues to break the speed limit. And if this goes away, you will kill our response times. It will absolutely affect public safety. I didn't have a take-home car at my work. We're first responders, folks. We have to have our equipment in our car and be able to have a car to respond immediately.
Is there anyone objecting?
Give me a second, okay? And we'll answer that. So, this is the current building that we're living in. The total square footage, including evidence that we're living in right now, is 11,800 square feet. That's our patrol riding stations. We actually currently don't have a conference room. We don't have a training room. This is Holly Fox's desk that we pushed up to the side of record so she'd have a place to work. And so it's going to come with a cost.
You're at 825.
Okay, you bet. So 2.1 million for 20 personnel. A new police facility, we updated those numbers, 16 million. And we have some support costs like dispatch fees for 340,000. Once the building is paid off, then the number per year would reduce. Good news is the city already owns the land, right there at the Wells Fargo Drive-Up. We'll talk more about this, maybe in the question and answer. We're not building a Taj Mahal. It would be a 2-story building. The second story would be unfinished, so we'd have room to grow, because we'll be in it for the next 50 years. And then an adjacent building would store evidence and training, because the square footage cost is much less. Mayor?
So quickly, I have the honor and duty to explain how we're going to pay for it. We have a problem. City Council's put together a solution with the assistance of the Blue Ribbon Public Citizen Safety Task Force. And the first thing I want you to know is it's going to be a sales tax. Why a sales tax? If it was a property tax, the citizens of the city of Montrose would pay 100% of the cost. By going to a sales tax, we spread that out. City residents are going to pay a third, county residents are going to pay a third, and we'll take questions on that later. And the tourists, we have a wonderfully booming tourist economy. The tourists get to pay a third of that also. So it saves you money by going to a sales tax. Now, what is the ask? The ask is a 0.58% increase in sales tax for the first 30 years. We're going to go out and borrow $16 million from USDA at a 3.5% rate. It is just like a home mortgage. You can pay it off early, and as soon as it's paid off, and we hope very much because of our great tourist economy, that we'll pay that off early and be able to reduce the rate early. So you can look at the, let's go back to the list. Okay, and you can also see, so if we add the 0.58, we come up with 8.53. And you can see we'll fall between Grand Junction and Glenwood Springs as far as being competitive with our neighbors. You can also see that Montrose is one of the few cities up there that does not have a property tax currently. Yes, we'll be right in the middle of this list, but as you can see, Grand Junction has a property tax, Glenwood Springs has a property tax. So yes, we fall right in the middle of the list, but we're one of the very, very few that do not have a property tax. So we feel that we being city council, feels we are being very, very conservative and really guarding your money. This will sunset in 30 years. The other thing that we will guarantee you, this is not bait and switch. This isn't collect new sales tax and take money away from the police department in their percentage of the budget. We will guarantee you it will be written into the ballot language that the percent of money going to the police department will never during this time fall below that 43% based on the 2018 figures. And pretty much that in a nutshell is the financial end. We'll be happy to answer questions at the very end, and I want to give you time for questions. So I've done the money part very, very quickly.
I'm going to turn it over here to Dan in just a minute. This is what we're facing. I've already showed you these pictures, the heroin, the meth, the drug crimes, and the other issues like school safety and traffic. And this is what we want to protect, honestly. And you will all have an opportunity to help us, and our officers are watching too. They do have opportunities to go other places. They do, but they serve in this community because they love it, because this is also their calling. This is their calling, and this is what we need to get back to. But we are overwhelmed. These are the stats, and the only thing I ask is, when you walk away from this today, if you can support this, great, but at least you have the facts to let others know what's going on in our community. I'll turn it over to Dan.
Hey, Chief Hall.
Did it just die on you? There you go, Dan.
I didn't do anything, really. Good morning. Great presentation by Chief Hall. Montrose Police Department is clearly one of the very finest police departments in the 7th Judicial District. We work with them all the time, and they do tremendous work. You know, our world is changing. Our world is always changing, isn't it? But our world is really changing. More and more people moving to Colorado, more and more people moving here to Montrose. We see it every day. And it's changing in tone and tenor. I was talking to somebody who has lived in Denver a long time. She told me, you know, it just feels angrier. I think this is what we all sense. We see less civil discourse, less value on compromise. We see random acts of violence, just all the time. It seems like it's almost every day. I can't remember where the last one was. Was it El Paso? Was it a mall? Was it a Walmart? Was it a school? I don't know anymore. We see answers. We see policies coming from our capitals that don't really seem to address our problems, that don't really seem to match our values, and that don't seem to account for life in rural and frontier Colorado with the challenges that we have. And I think you know what some of those are. Some Some of those policies are around drug policy. Drug policy, starting in March of 2020, those possession of 4 grams of heroin. Guess what? That's going to be a misdemeanor, folks. 4 grams of methamphetamine. Chief Hall didn't get to talk about dosage. That's a lot. Going to be a misdemeanor. That's taken away a whole lot of tools that we used to have. Our community corrections executive director is here. I can't send him to his fine facility and programs anymore. So the world's changing. So the question is, can we still decide what kind of community we want to live in? Can we decide what kind of community do I want to be a part of? Do I want to live in? And I submit the answer is absolutely yes. Despite the changes going on in our world, despite whatever else is happening in our capitals, we can choose the kind of community that we want to live in. But here's the thing. It's going to take capacity. It takes capacity, resources to respond to the changing world that we live in. It's going to take new ways of policing, intelligence-led policing, proactive policing, working hand in hand with civil authorities to take care of these properties that are causing such problems. Finding new solutions that fit our community, that fit the way we live, that fit our values, our resources, and our capacity, and to find people who live and work here. And we have incredibly fine, dedicated professionals in our schools, in our mental health facilities, in our public health facilities. We can choose what we want to be and what our communities are going to look like, how we're going to deal with transients, how we're going to deal with people moving through here, doing drugs as they go, causing problems, causing disturbances. That's what's at stake. If we don't have the capacity and the resources, we're not going to be able to keep choosing to live in this community and make it what we want.
Now we've got time for questions. So
This mic kind of is working.
this mic is working. I'm going to take this one around for questions. And yeah, it's working.
What is the source for the drug amphetamines and the heroin? Is it internal Colorado, external? Where does it come from?
The heroin is Mexico. Methamphetamine is Mexico. It's very difficult actually to make methamphetamine in the United States today. It can still be done, but the regulations have tightened down so much that trying to get the ingredients is just very difficult, and it's not cost effective. And we live right on Highway 50, as you know, so.
2 questions. I'm confused. I know I pay property taxes. Remember, second question is why is it no longer going to be a felony then? If you possess 4 grams of heroin, who came up with that idea?
That's a great question. You'll have to talk to your state legislator about that. Serious. I don't think that I don't think anyone who voted yes for that understood the unintended consequences. What do you think is going to happen, not just to Montrose, but to the state of Colorado, when I can't make an arrest on someone possessing that amount of heroin, which, by the way, is sold in units? We said we'd get to that. 1 gram of heroin is 10, depending on tolerances, to 30 doses. 4 grams is distribution level quantities of heroin. Okay? What do you think the dealers are going to do? They're just going to possess 3 to 3.5 grams of heroin. We'll come up, we'll shake hands, we'll take their drugs, we'll write a ticket. And I didn't talk about this part of it. Here's the thing. We can stand up here and say that we're going to be tough on drug dealers, tough on drugs, tough on crime. And we will be. The fact of the matter is, though, is that we have a lot of individuals in our community that are addicted to drugs. And if you've ever had a family member addicted to drugs, you know the heart-wrenching, heartbreaking struggle that that is. An arrest is something that breaks that cycle. They rarely spend any time in prison or jail. They go into treatment. There's probation for treatment. The walk-in treatment center is coming online in our community here, 24/7, treatment. And the justice system, as the district attorney says, is certainly not perfect, but these people need help. And then we have to go after those individuals who are causing the problem. And if we do that, because those are the same individuals that are causing the assaults, the burglaries, the robberies, even the sex assaults. So if you disrupt them, and what I mean by disrupt is every time they look in the mirror, they see a black and white. They're going to get to a point where they don't want to be here anymore, folks. In Mesa County, their criminals are telling their cops, this is really unfair what you're doing to us. True statement. I would love to have that here. I would. Oh, yeah. Okay, you pay a county property tax, you pay a school district property tax, you pay a rec center property tax, you pay a fire district property tax. You do not pay a property tax to the city of Montrose.
Okay, Sylvia's got questions.
Okay.
Would you talk about the sales tax issue? And what does it apply to, and does that include food?
Okay, that's a great question. Montrose has a tax that includes foods at the grocery store. Now, if you're on public assistance, if you're on food stamps, you don't pay that sales tax. And most communities in the state of Colorado, Bill, can you answer the exact numbers on this, please?
Yeah. Out of the 271 municipalities, 38 exempt food from their sales tax.
So most of the states, it's a pretty common practice in the state of Colorado, but again, if you're living at a certain poverty level, you don't pay that tax. Thanks for that question.
And just another piece of information for people who, because we get the question, why don't we exempt food from our sales tax? That would eliminate about $3.4 million from our budget.
Oh, yes, well, thank you for a great presentation. And, could you explain the situation with that 17-minute average response time for priority one calls? Because, that seems awfully long. And a corollary to this question is that if you have 31,000 incidents per year, that's about 90 incidents a day. And is that include, collecting dangerous dogs? Could you amplify that? I mean, what are these incidents, you know what I mean? Because, there's people who could rob 3 liquor stores in 17 minutes.
Right. Well, it's all based on priority. So we don't currently have animal control officers that work on the weekends. So that's part of that. Our police officers respond to those kinds of incidents. Okay, we absolutely do. But if we have an armed robbery in progress, we're going to let that call sit. That's a priority 2 call. But what my example was of what we're dealing with is it doesn't matter winter, summer, day, or night anymore. At 12 a.m. on a Monday night, we have 4 active disturbances going. So when I call and I say I need a police officer, there are no more police officers to help respond because we've got 4 in the sergeant. So the Montrose County Sheriff's Department comes in because They are here a lot, backing us up. A lot. And thank God for them. And my hope is with more resources, folks, that they can actually be in the county, helping the county residents. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. We're overwhelmed, and that's affecting our response time.
Well, are the 90 incidents per day calls to 911, or are those
That's
actual
everything.
responses?
No, that's actual responses, whether that's a phone call request, whether that's a response,
Okay.
that's everything. Yeah, that's everything.
Chief, that was a great presentation, and you absolutely had me sold on the need. The question I have for you is on recruiting and retaining officers. As you said, Grand Junction is going to be hiring a lot of officers and so forth. I'd like to know how you're going to go about recruiting these folks, training them, and making sure that they stay around. And also, you're going to have you're going to be bringing people on, but you won't have your building built for a couple of years. How's that situation?
So that's a large question. I'll try to answer it quickly. First of all, training, recruiting, okay? Things have changed for us. We've done some new things. We can't expect to just sit here and wait for people to come to us. I think there's still individuals that want to be police officers and they want to get good experience, that think Montrose is a one-stoplight town. I heard that the other day. So we are actually taking our police officers and we're sending them around the state, working with our HR department, which honestly we haven't done really well in several years. And so, to exemplify that, in September and October, we have, Matt, how many hiring processes do we have? It's almost every Monday, but,
Pretty much every
all right, they're full. People want to come here. And we even have individuals calling our police officers because they're actually our best advertisers. And if you have a good department and a positive department, then word spreads and people want to come here. And they're actually calling saying, we need to get in here, okay? Part of all this, we've got to be competitive. We got to stay competitive. Grand Junction Police Department starts their officers around 64. The city council and the city manager recognized some of the pay increases recently within the last year and raised the starting salary for our police officers up past the market guide, because I had officers, recruiters from the Eastern Slope calling 5 brand new officers of mine almost every day. And it's still going to continue. It's still going to continue. And I think Dan deals with some of the same challenges as far as keeping people. But it's not just about pay. It's about the working environment and whether you feel supported in your community.
So we've got another question here, and then I know there's one back there. I'll be there in a second.
2 questions. What is the starting average pay? And the second question is, what is the turnover in police officers?
Okay. Starting salary, not average, starting salary for police officer in the city of Montrose is $54,000 a year. I have no idea about the turnover. We, I don't know, in the last couple of years, we've definitely lost a few. We've been down, I think in 2017 by almost 11. Currently, we are down 4 police officers. We need to hire 4 more. And like I said, our hiring processes are full. And then so you're talking about hiring, back to Jim's question. Look, the reality is, we ain't gonna hire 20 folks in 1 year. We're not. We're not. And so the reality is, we're going to try to hire 8. 4 for one academy in January, 4 for the next academy in August. And then the crime analyst position, and then the public safety attorney. For a total of 10 positions for the first year, and then try to spread that out to where they're all hired by year 3 as a building, probably a little bit before that comes online.
Okay, I'm in the back with a question.
First of all, thank you for putting your lives on the line every day.
Thank you.
Thank you. My concern is, even if you could find all the criminals and write them up and
send them where they need to be sent. Don't we have a problem at the 7th Judicial with getting enough judges to actually bring these cases forward and get them prosecuted correctly? And what is maybe something we can do about that?
So I've been told many times to stay in my lane about things like that. But I will tell you this, okay? Our judges have a workload of about 1.3, sometimes 1.4, I think. They have a lot of cases. And maybe Dan can speak to the number of cases that are coming up.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. We have systemic problems in the criminal justice system. And if you were here 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we talked about some of those. But the reality is Colorado has individual funding for different agencies, right? You know, different criminal justice is not funded by the state in its entirety. The Montrose Police Department is funded by the city of Montrose. District attorneys are funded by the counties. It's kind of crazy. And then most other things are funded by the state. They're actually building, redoing the building in Delta, trying to build another courtroom, anticipating the need for additional judges. The legislature added 15 judges around the state last session. We didn't make the list. We didn't make the list. Our numbers, as bad as our numbers are not as bad as they are in the rest of the state of Colorado. So we're hoping that we make the second go-round of expansion. Yes, the system as a whole needs help. And that's why I talk about what we really need is we need flexibility at the local level to be proactive. What we really want to do is can we do what Grand Junction is doing and actually see the numbers go back down instead of going call to call to call to call and not even being able to deal with the initial call as thoroughly as we would like to and not being able to follow up with our detectives wherever Commander Cox is, because we don't have time. Instead, we want to be more proactive, intelligence-led policing, trying to deal with these things on the front side, but we also have to deal with the lower level disruption that these individuals cause in our communities. It doesn't always end up in the state criminal justice system. The minor shoplifting, the transients that are, where are they going to the bathroom in our parks? We had a park up in Gunnison this last winter that was just overrun and it was ruined. People couldn't use the park. So a lot of this is local response can make a huge difference. And then, yes, we have to work ultimately on making the criminal justice system as a whole much better. A lot of work to do.
Chief, thanks for that wonderful presentation, very helpful. I have a question about drug, arrest and use here in Montrose. How does it correlate to state and national averages?
I don't know, I can't answer that. I don't know if we're average, and Dan may be able to answer that better than I can. I know we're up to about 1 overdose save every week and a half.
Just one quick anecdote for you. First of all, methamphetamine has been a scourge in the western United States, Midwest and western United States for 20, 30 years now. This is not a new problem. Excuse me. We have a new, actually a couple years now, DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, area agent for the Western Slope. He actually has investigated high-level drug distribution. He's been in Colombia for years. He's been all over the United States. He told us, our group, remember Steve Knight, told us about a year ago that Montrose, for meth, is the worst place he's ever seen. So this is a guy who's been all over, really, the world, trying to interdict drugs, and he's looking at the meth problem in Montrose going, saying, it's one of the worst I've ever seen. So,
And the caveat with that, I gotta be careful what I say for DEA, but one of the issues is because of the lack of resources here, we have cartel, Mexican cartel, right here, dealing directly. And why do you think DEA is here? We have 2 DEA agents here. We beat them for resources, or we beat the state for resources, even for the Eastern Slope. DEA put them here. That should tell you something.
Okay, here's your next question.
Yes.
How would you characterize the level of MS-13 activity in Montrose County and surrounding counties?
We've seen MS-13 occasionally, but rarely. Mexican drug cartel, absolutely. Now, if they're commingled, I don't know.
Okay, Chief, while we're in the back corner.
I'm glad that the county backs you up when you need it. Is that a reimbursable expense that comes out of your budget back to the county?
No, it's not.
That's
No.
good old-fashioned cooperation.
Yeah, that's just cooperation. We're working well with Sheriff Lillard. We have certainly combined our SWAT teams. We're hoping to work with Sheriff Lillard in other ways. We have now a county-wide mental health co-responder program, which just makes sense. And that hasn't come online until just this week. So I think we're doing a lot of good things together. But you need to know that they need to be in the county, working in the county. And right now, oftentimes, not all the time, they're here backing us up.
We've got time for 1 or 2 more questions, depending on what they are. I know you both have questions. I'm going to do this.
I have a question and comment. When is the next Citizens Police Academy? And my comment is, I've been in Montrose for a quarter of a century, and I have 2 words to represent the police, Montrose Police: honesty and integrity.
Thank God you said that. And I know our community supports us. I know they do. And we're just overwhelmed, but I appreciate those words.
Police Academy.
Oh, yeah, Police Academy. So that's really good. January 1st, we are starting another one. We do one every year. And this year, we're actually going to do a mini one in Spanish.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Chief Hall. You know, you look at the police blotter every once in a while, and you can see that there's just a great deal of petty crime by perhaps young people who went off the rails maybe at the age of 16, 17, 18 years old. And then you've got the domestic violence problem, which is always very troublesome for the police force. But a lot of these domestic violence incidents, these are repeat offenders, okay? Now, what I wonder is, now you mentioned that you have brought on a mental health resource, okay? Well, maybe some more of this money needs to be devoted to dealing with people who just need, you know, a hand up, or maybe a slap on the head and say, go get an education, go do something with your life instead of hanging out and, you know, stealing, shoplifting a beer from the liquor store, you know?
So that's a good comment, question. I can tell you that a lot of the things we do deal with under an intelligence-led policing model, because we're not going to let it go. But if we didn't have a municipal court in our community, we would inundate his office. Municipal court is going to become a key component of intelligence-led policing. I understand everything that you're saying here. The #1 priority for this money is to get more police officers on the street and make sure that we're effectively responding. Beyond that, are there ways that we could possibly support agencies or groups to support the criminal justice system? Possibly, as long as it supports intelligence-led policing. So we've talked about that. And then I do want to turn it over to Phoebe Benzinger, just right at the end. She may have some comments.
Perfect timing.
Great. Thanks, Barbara. Thank you, Chief Hall. Right there, like you eat it, yeah. So beforehand, I was handing out these cards that I think I got most of you. So anyway, we have a committee that's going to help pass this ballot issue. We need your help. We need your help in a lot of ways. If you didn't get a card, if you're interested in this, please see me afterwards. I'll be back by the door. For those that got a card and filled it out, I will collect them. So we are on Facebook. So if you have questions, we have some really good information. Tomorrow night, we'll actually be doing this presentation again out at Cobble Creek Clubhouse at 6 o'clock. So if you know of somebody that you would like to hear this, please have them come out tomorrow night. If you have an organization that you would like for Chief Hall or one of the commanders to come present, please let us know, because we've got to get this message out there. I think our biggest problem will be getting the message out there and getting people to hear this and making them vote. Yeah, if I could make them vote, but yeah. So again, we've got cards. I need to collect those. I need your help. Please do all that you can.
Phoebe, what's the name of the organization?
One community, safer together. There's a webpage. All the information is on this card. So yeah, that's what the yard sign will say. If you will take a yard sign and put it in your yard.
Great. We are going to end right on time. Let's give Chief Hall a big round of applause. To Mayor Bowman and our District Attorney Hospitaller for being here and providing their piece of the puzzle. Thank you all for coming this morning, and have a great week. And a reminder, we are going to be here next week. We're going to be at the new County Event Center. And when you walk in the front doors, you'll be able to find us. I'm not sure if we're going to be to the left or the right. To the right. Fantastic. You're going to be in the meeting room to the right, and the subject topic is the County Health and Human Services Department. And what they're doing, I think they've had some turnover in their leadership at that department in the last few years. And so we haven't heard from them in a while, and that should be very interesting. And it ties in a lot with some of the issues we talked about today. So,
Barbara,
yes,
tell them to bring their own copy if they want.
Bring